Well, good evening. Welcome. This is lesson 6-7, and tonight we're going to be talking about finding the percent of a number, and we're going to do it 3 different ways. So first, let's talk about method number 1. Method number 1 is to solve percent of a number by using proportions. All right. So, and this is very helpful when we are solving any kind of proportion problem that involves percents, because this will help us find, when we're trying to find the percent, what is the percent of a number, but it also will be helpful for problems where we're moving the variable around. All right, so let's do a quick example. Suppose that we're using is over of equals percent over 100 to find 60% of 80. Okay, so you can follow along and take notes if you'd like. And so what I'm going to do, since we're going to be doing 60% of 80, you can write that down. We're going to do, the of is clearly 80. Okay, that's what we're taking the percent of. And the percent is 60%. So the 60% always goes over 100. The percent always goes over 100. And in this case, we know the of is 80. And we're looking for the unknown, which goes on top where the is was. So we're going to solve this by cross multiplying. And if I cross multiply, I get 100 times x is equal to 80 times 60. And if I divide both sides by 100, sorry, that looks like a 6, but divide both sides by 100. Over here, those cancel out completely, and I get x is equal to, I can cancel out a 0, and I can cancel out another 0. What I'm really doing is dividing by 10s there, and I get 8 times 6, which is 48. And so the final answer here, 60% of 80 is 48. Okay? And so that's using is over of equals percent over 100. That's doing it as a proportion. Okay, well, the nice thing about this method, it also works when I'm looking for the percent, or when I know the is and the percent and I'm looking for the of. Okay, so if I'm looking, let's take a couple problems. Let's take an example here. So suppose I'm looking for 13 is what percent of 20? All right, so 13 is what percent of 20? So the 13 is the is, it goes on the top. The 20 is the of, it goes on the bottom, and in this case I'm looking for the percent, so that's going to go on top of 100. Again, cross multiply, and actually this one, you can solve this proportion using the arrows. To change 20 into 100, I just multiply by 5, so multiply the top by 5. And 13 times 5 gives me x equals 65. Do we all agree? Can't hear you all. All right, we got a lot of helpers today. My entire 6-4 class is helping today. All right, so what if I take another one? What if I say 23 is what percent of 25? Go ahead right now and write that down on your papers. 23 is what percent of 25? So I'm giving you the is, and I'm giving you the of, and I want to know the percent. And actually, wait, hold on, this is messed up, because that's the one we just did. Well, no, but that's the type that we just did. Hold on, I've got to erase this. Hold on, I've got to fix this. I want to do the other kind. I want to do the other kind that we haven't done yet. I want to do, for this example, let's do 22 is 88% of what number? Okay, did you get that? 22 is 88% of what number? And so when I set this one up, the 22 is the is, so it goes on top still. The 88 is the percent, so it goes over 100. And I'm looking for the bottom number underneath the 22. Okay, so again, we can always cross multiply to solve this, but actually we're trying to find x. What do we do to 88 to change it into 22? And I think you're going to see, if you just look at that, you could divide by 4. So on the bottom, I also divide by 4, and I can see that I get x equals 25. Now again, the benefit of doing the proportion is that it allows me to look for the unknown quantity when it's something other than the is. So whether it's the is, the of, or the percent that I'm looking for, proportions will allow me to do that. All right, so that's method 1, and it can also be used for lots of other things. All right, let's go ahead to method number 2. For how to do the percent of a number. And this is percents in equations. Now you might argue that a proportion is an equation, because all an equation is something that has an equal sign, right? Well, proportion is a very special kind of equation where you have a fraction or a ratio equal to another fraction or a ratio. So I'm talking about an equation that's not necessarily a proportion, right? Everybody with me? Okay. So let's go back to that same problem we just did a second ago. Let's do 60% of 80 again, but this time let's do it as a proportion. All right, what we're going to do in this one is we're going to change, just like we just did in the last lesson, we're going to change 60% to 0.60 or just 0.6. What does of mean in mathematics, everybody? Right, so we're going to change that to a times, and we're going to do basically 0.6 times 80. Well, 0.6 times 80, ignore the extra 0, so it's 0.6 times 80, so I get 480 with a decimal, so I get 48.0. All right, that's it. That's the answer. And if you recall, that is the same answer we got when we did it using the proportions. Okay, so this is the equation way to do percent of a number. Is everybody with me? Yeah. All right, so there's one more way. Okay, this is method number 3, and it uses, it also uses multiplication, but it's going to use simple fractions instead of decimals. And so this is for things like 25% of a number, or 10% of a number, or 50% of the number, the ones where we know easy fractions for them. So pretty much anything that's a perfect 10%, right? Because if I had 20% of something, it would just be 2/10 or 1/5, right? If I had to do 30%, couldn't I just do 3/10? If I had to do 25% or 50% or 75%, those are all fractions that you know really easy, right? 25% would be what? A quarter. And 50% would be a half. Okay? And 75% would be 3/4. All right? So let's do one of those problems. And so, again, let's do 60% of 80. So what is 60% as a fraction? Wouldn't it be 6 over 10? What's even simpler than 6 over 10?
3 over 5.
Right, good, 3 over 5. So let's change, so 60% we could change into 6 over 10, which we know is equal to 3/5. And let's take 3/5 and let's multiply that times 80 over 1. Okay, well that's actually not so bad. The 5 and the 80 cancel out real nicely, giving me 3 times 16. And guess what 3 times 16 is? Same as before, 48. So I get the same answer regardless of which way I do it. Whether I set up a proportion and do is over of equals percent over 100, whether I multiply by a decimal version of the percentage and just use multiplication, or whether I use a fraction version of the percent and use multiplication. And here's the big last slide, and this will be on the daily quiz. The beautiful thing about this, it seems like there's 3 totally different ways to do it, right? There aren't. They're all exactly mathematically equivalent. Okay, so whether I do 60 over 100, which is really what 60% means, or I change it to 0.60, or I change it to 6/10 as a fraction, which reduces to 3/5, aren't 60 over 100 and 0.60 and 3/5 all the same quantity?
Yeah.
They absolutely are.
Yeah.
Okay, so mathematically we really are doing the exact same thing. Okay, that's it. That's finding percent of a number. So thanks for listening to the video, and tomorrow in class we're going to practice these. Sound good?
Yeah.
All right, so this is Mr. Gunn and the 6-4 class signing off. Thanks for watching.